therefore like material creation right now is for like calculating and like put it job and everything not like you would be like super by agent connected to like the by agency of like like you would do the minimum favorite maybe the reason for like right now someone like wanting to like by applying for like I'm right now maybe the reason settling on towards the like minimum generation right now that's like what I actually said about what is like fly on percent of the long term position right now to the reality like the scenario that I'm referring to like I'm looking right now as like right now referring to scenario to be like while Anya is like chasing after like the man holding like the long term different like Anya some tripping and falling onto that man was like the scenario that I'm looking at that I'm just like into be like an old man and as well holding ending up falling in like the boss line like the balloon as well falling and at that point, I'm hoping that Anya's like focus would be on the second and like Anya would already excited like the development. I'm hoping that like the old man I'm hoping like at that point struggling to like get that but like while Anya's focus would be solely on like the balloon and Anya excitedly running towards like the balloon and grabbing on like the balloon and that was like which would be about to like I'm hoping at least being that head of like the balloon might be the case the balloon premise so definitely as like the old man will be falling like and like in losing his like it hold over like the person stable brand but like at that point as like Anya would be falling and but when like Anya would be noticing that those buildings like taking flight by itself and so like at that point Anya totally understood that rushing towards like the building to like stop like the river uh, uh, that the scenario that I'm so like Anya grabbing that building and at that point I'm looking like that they don't be so strong that and like that they don't in like from the quantity of that intensity of that gas starting to be left within that and referring that they will flying off starting that take flight with like high like which an average that and so still I'm looking like that old man would be struggling to like get up and like say Anya like scenario that I'm looking and I'm looking like know it as well as like uh your I'm looking that by sheer coincidence that during that exact time that them both being reflected. It's also like this scenario that I'm so like that at that point that Anya the balloon would be starting like fly off of like Anya and then like at that point that Anya would out and at that point I'm like one trophy on George like Anya and like fighting on to like Anya so that the scenario that way still I'm looking that even at that point that it's correction that flying off but like both Anya as well as like gone through the graduate whole stage that Anya like the scenario that I'm also going and make a presentation. Number people like at that point that Anya and Bond that ending up flying off and the next event taking the deep up into electricity like the scenario that I'm referring. So like once again like that separation happening between that Anya and Bond and like and your like scenario that I'm referring. And even at that point I'm looking at both Lloyd as well as that you are I'm focusing that the remaining spike and but like I'm putting maybe during that extra time like by your point that happening some sort of like an incident happening right close to the your as well as like Lloyd which is standing especially I think like at a, like they will be focusing on that for that very moment it could be the earliest time that like I never know like want to will be getting flown away by like the room it's like the scenario surrounding so like that way and that way, I'm just like the presentation Anya along that phone at a lab location deep within like specifically and basically they are like anticipating that certain all of sudden like popping and I'm referring that at that point that both Anya as well as that phone would be falling there like I'm building that white sheer that and point of that I'm putting that Anya along with that bond that having that cushioning kind of like a landing that the scenario that I'm doing and at at that point, the self-employed like phone will just straight away feeling responsible at that point and would be already imagining things that mind for like Lloyd holding phone for like having daughter Anya separated from Lloyd. And you are with the along the line somebody for like phone at that point will be all thing starting like all thing and then we are really reflected in our because at that point it's almost like bond would be trying on to that Anya follow and basically that with that absolutely intent to like as soon as possible get Anya back towards like the on your just like the scenario that but like I'm saying that at that point is when I'm saying that Anya's like telepathic powers like to be mind reading telepathic powers to 20 at that point you'll be picking up um the conversation going through like the mind of like referring to the like at like close distance from that but like the scenario that I'm looking at. So like that's criminal like would have totally not talked about it. Like neither I know for conducting in that field at that point in that location would have shown up to like execute some sort of like a mission. Especially it might be the kind of emissions of elements and so like this and you think of like creating like the mind of that limited plan of that sort of like the scenario that I'm thinking. So like the top one would be trying to like get trying to like kind of like trying to like get some students so much what we get Anya back towards like the different like Anya at that point so like it's like a field of play like looking that like more than getting born that gives me that like it's time for their next mission down the line completely and yeah, at that point telling Bob and I'm looking at that point when I'm and at that point I'm looking at bond cleaning help us and basically cleaning us like you know the choice but like help Anya and follow Anya be along for company Anya and ensure Anya safety while Anya would be following like you know let this not that I'm what about and I'm that being that's the point where like it's a very first personal mission of that in the creating kind of like a mission of like Anya along with Black Bot in like 2 3 of like five family would be trained at that point of like the scenario. And then in that way that Anya especially those are actually to like especially follow that in the land and that usually it's ending up like that Anya along that point most likely ending up in like the base of that criminal that like maybe that head leader of that criminal like and that would be like other criminals that like all like joining up for like a meeting, having a meeting or something like they're like a music like kind of like the kind of yes like but I know would be still keep finding out that and would be listening to the fans like and still I'm just putting that I know complete once again prepping and lack of limit I know it's not put in order and that way I know some of getting blown and getting captured by that like it's another and at that point, that phone was like trying to like attack the remote and doing that so that to like protect and it gets like I never like and that's when that both bone along with that I never getting captured is like the scenario that I was in. At that point, I'm looking that that conflict is really ending up deciding to like silence both Anya like for so like something like in that situation where like both Anya people have like born that's an extremely dangerous situation. Uh, and that very last second is when I'm looking like at that point, I'm looking for like scenario to be that is seeing low that would be showing up first. And if to that location, I would be able to like say, fine, I don't have like water that with last second is like scenario and everything. And that kind of permanently, totally will be that I don't remember the name of the something like low that quite still would be like would be making it possible for like low to be able to like locate like to be able to like track down and locate yeah and that will link it to like even before your like the scenario and then while pembegulan lakukan like scenario to be like after like low it as well as like your good thing so like not being often realizing that like I have like only looking like at that point I'm looking like both of them deciding to like switch up and stuff like then that's the take it's like the scenario that I'm looking so like you too like I'm so like I'm looking at low it's like tracking down and location things like and so being to pick up to that of your and slowly to that is my own like like low it being able to like make it to like that in the situation where like Anya would be like say Anya like born at that very last second and basically while or like at that point while that so intense fight will be going on with like between like Lloyd and like the comedian and like being a great member of like the mental services gang. So that like I'm even while so like I'm looking like those kinds of people that fight like and I'm looking at one of like the like at that point in order to like stop Lloyd one of like the things that basically once again like make it manage to like make it towards like Anya and bond so become like once again Anya and bond get into that absolute things of like situation and at that point I'm looking like Lord will be totally extremely in like an intense like and will be kind of like situation with like while taking on a bunch of numbers all at once like you know so like that way like any critical scenario happening where like though it not being able to like make it towards like being able to like save iron so like I'm putting that that very last second is when I'm putting that your entrance will be happening and like your putting only taking out that criminal and basically saving that for iron and bond like giving that second and usually at that point like putting that with the uh fake husband and wife like basically your set up like joy like basically the exceptional fighting space like and that point like easily offering and take down that can and getting them is like the scenario that is always correct. also like the team experience right now that's for like the train going crazy and different that and the bring like to get down by one of like the survivors of like that go or like that big incident from like the top where like you have had one and like the body that had to save protect and save that woman and her child. Definitely like due to that I remember for that it might be one of those that multiple great number of that work present on that ship as part of like the finger of like and one among them might have managed to one among like the few that might have maybe managed to like survive like something like might have managed to like figure out like the actual identity of like your might be the same exactly might be the same version. Or like in the like they might have be like your point might have ended up like seeing that from a distance might have ended up like noticing job at that part might be let's say like the possible that I'm doing. So like it might be that survivor of that ship incident who might have that incident and sense of that wanting to like get revenge and eliminate your that might be like the reason for like right now want that vision supersized vision of that the train going crazy and like throw free and then so definitely that might be that attempt by winner thing to get revenge and to that eliminate your might be the case that you might want to also, like the Korean still implemented in Thailand, and the first work that we have skill at work, even on holding it, like, and the kid definitely not doing that, but going crazy, like the train, but like, and it's something in America, and like, like in the scenario to be like, the culprit, that I know, once like I was fighting, the culprit that definitely trying for to be a survivor of like ship incident where like you had worked as like about that definitely might be in like trying to get revenge on your also like definitely many friends right now and go like any of like about like only to go home study hard and get like sell up like a different background usually background on I know in the end like this scenario that I mean regular like and it can definitely understand that for the scenario to be like on the way back like I have physically slipping away and basically basically managing to like get up and separate from that Lord as well as like your and I'm going like I'm eventually succeeding in that finding like the culprit before like he will be making it to like the train is like the scenario that I'm playing. And so I know like attempts to like try to like stop him before he gets onto like the train after the train that resulting in like that coming most likely that deciding to that cross harm to like finance like the scenarios that I'm on the so like I was bring up that very last second is when I was bring up what Anya would be okay yeah and then very last second is when I was bring that finding that Lloyd as well as like you have to be finding to make it that tells the second that I'm that will be that point that Lloyd only your itself that only offering and that criminal and I will bring that way that criminal getting up to the scenario that I'm bring and that so the company at that point for like Anya to be totally happy and seems that way as if that she has to say the way Yellow Blind Anya is totally feeling like at that point Anya would be feeling that now she can totally wholeheartedly enjoy like the balloons and like the park and everything. Yellow Blind like Anya would be totally looking forward to and excited about enjoying like the rest of the day. But like at that point I'm referring to that light of like Anya earlier like anticipating that definitely at that point that like you as well as like straight away telling that writing Anya it leads back towards like home so that like Anya could like study hard to get all the stellar which like it's enough and everything. That way like I'm trying towards like the end of the day like I'm doing that life of like Anya being able to back or Anya with like Anya being taken back for and that way Anya being solely because that light of Anya like Anya having no option but to go back home and be study for like stellar let's say scenario better because all of the time and there's a renal brain right now stuff for like anything terrain that is totally happening today in that the train of that lord and like the train of that straight to work is like the continuous scenario there. And that whole that that eventually ending up end up near and that sense even though Lord is like have all these skills and it's like fire and then it's still and that was might have work on like train might have like such experience like working with the train that and like that skill even with like Lloyd things like that is the scenario can be like it being messy just matter from like no it could even stop that that excited about the food. They make it eventually making it to like the path just like the scenario that and like scenario to be like that protecting of about to train that even making it to like the path and making it exactly towards like towards like the family of like this boss. Uh, I think about this like the scenario that so like when the scenario that I'm looking this for like Lloyd the screen like chasing up like that train up in the spaces of the and because when like the numbers current injury scenario being like that afraid to walk up with tech train is about to land uh, the train attack on like the family of like about like and that very last second is when about to come back. And that very last second is when I'm like Lloyd finally managed like succeed in that stopping that the train of like the afraid to walk around that day. Like at that very last second I'm to bring that to Lloyd's help. I'm to bring that family of like about really save like the scenario that I'm looking about and like scenario that I'm yet like I'm saying that even at that point like the first was around the and that finally we need a league would be getting justice and would be like a conversation should be happening between that Lloyd as well as that uh boss who be the that family and be the scared at that point of that getting saved by Lloyd effectively in that second. It's like looking out at about so like at that point I was when like the boss that just like initial reaction would be like in front of Lloyd like would be playing that frustrated about that and gone in crazy and even telling Lloyd that saying that like he's doing that the complete work that will be fire and that by then like I'm doing like the police went asking like said what was like put out that like at that point I was yeah like Lloyd will be going up to that boss and just be telling him how that how to that okay about talking to that person that work up to that event work on that holidays and which had eventually in that fire into the into that this internet and basically that the boss totally has a legitimate sector thing and ends up from that Lloyd totally like telling to that was bring that actual awareness to that was that kind of like in our that of the and at that point I'm just open that maybe at that point find that was being able to that emphasize that creative doctor and then feeling that and I'm just that way that was ending up totally getting like the arrested that certain worker like this we get him out get him not be sent to that stage like to scenario and that take him back to that work and that giving him that holiday that what deserves that scenario that that way like I'm moving towards like the end scenario of like the festival of like the festival of really getting justice so that the soul through that knowledge information uh like living the scenario that I'm looking for the plan of the okay, so like the female students right now this for like for the stare born at the Anya feeling that actually shocking to some place right now connecting to that you're sitting with like the scenario that I'm looking for like and like your might have still think that what is and what on I don't have friends that guidance colleagues that colleague parts that guidance as well and different that by now that your secretly might have upgraded some cooking skills to that such high levels that I'm looking right now. You're to probably such an accepting cook by now. It's definitely my content. You might have steadily kept it hidden and that's like a surprise from not only Anya as well as that Bond, but also even from Lloyd might be really definitely going to select good. Until this point, I'm looking for a great while like it might have been while you might have been steadily training and working on cooking skills and have the ready cooking skills. That in that time, like I'm looking, it might have been understanding, it might have been Lloyd. Alone that might have been cooking. It's definitely might have been example to the everything. It's definitely my favorite. So like I'm looking at so like I'm feeling like being such really being such an absolute surprise not only for like Anya as well as one but also to like Lloyd as well as like the scenario once like right now and that job would be done to get such absolute feast for them like I'm like that need that I'm offering that even while your would be progressing through getting that I'm offering that then getting that extremely tempting smell of like you're eating with like scenario that I'm offering that being such an absolute stop for like Anya as well as like one and I'm offering that one that your would be bringing. like the peace towards like and but at that point like both Paul as well as like Anya would be the place to like go up to it where like you are going to be and basically to let's see how what like in your field and see yeah like I'm bring that Lloyd I'm bring the target spiker and would be only sending you know and the spiker to like the point of that not even sensing uh, that like tempting smell of that your like you can argue that in that way like Lloyd totally not allow both Anya as well as like Bond to like leave the table from the study. It's like which not that and so like once like you want to be bringing her piece for like like a different at that point I'm saying like Anya Bond as well as like Lloyd getting that absolute feel shock because like I'm feeling that the piece would be so this thing is perfect and this movie is so in the tempting and it would be so tasty is that I think the scenario that I think of and my preference and that and the thing that would be that because of the change of like maybe for like like five family it would be like which would be that you're having um not even though not master but still you're having made it to becoming an acceptable certain skill it's like an scenario that I'm going to okay, so like the minimum trends of right now is that basically Franky like lower Franky might be charismatic and like sporting. Secretly might be like a popular like sport of states it might be the case that you know the reference. So definitely able to different like in like Fiona like character like totally think like Lloyd totally sorry so like Franky having the skills and that right now like it's an apple that I'm doing and Lloyd leading Fiona towards like Franky like it's an apple that I'm doing. And to like Frank is like so separate to have a daily account with Frank company. Frankie Uncle Frank can totally take advantage of that the first situation of like Fiona to like then Fiona that basically that Frankie would only for that state scene for like Fiona only that Fiona would go on a date with that Frankie like scenario that in that way like I'm even for Fiona like okay being forced to like go on a date with like Frank like scenario that I'm and I'm looking like even while Frankie is saying that to that Fiona I'm looking like stuff something that will be once like by the time the first problem scenario to be like the moment when you're making this condition to like Fiona at that point so like the first thing that will be popping up in like Fiona's mind would be to like only to share and threaten Frankie into like only force him to like to make that for uh state seat for like Fiona without even Fiona having to go a date. Like it would be like the first thing that we need popping up in like Fiona's mind. But then about like Fiona getting off like Lloyd because of like Fiona having this like massive feelings of affection towards like Lloyd like since like Frankie is like those fun like I'm bring that to be like the listener would be like Lloyd that would be recommending recommending Frankie for like this Fiona out there to Fiona like the scenario that I was so only this that is my own. Only this the fact that like like those and like Fiona will be the only thing that is needed that Fiona he cares and for example that Frankie then like no and if like Lloyd finds out about it then Lloyd would be totally disliking Fiona at that point. Would be along the lines and the next war Fiona would be feeling at that conflict scenario that I'm just that way like I'm going totally with that factor alone like for Fiona only forcing herself to with lack that absolute lack of interest in that Fiona totally forcing feeling like she has no control over the left phone and that way Fiona forcing herself to like go on a state like trying to like the scenario that can make it on the and like I'm different that Frankie would be totally excited about that going on that date with that Fiona and everything that Fiona will be doing her absolute best to that prevent with that Fiona that enjoying like the date with that Frankie with like the scenario that and like I'm doing that even the like even though Fiona will be doing her absolute best to like create it like a perfect still that it will be fast Fiona would be appearing to be like extremely uninterested for like Frankie. One like Fiona will be showing up for like the day from the get go, like the scenario that I was yeah, like I'm living like work Frankie doing like absolute best to like so big to like entertain Fiona and basically to have Fiona like Frankie, but like I'm doing like the exactly the scenario to be like once like the conversation between that Fiona and Frankie towards like Fiona was going mostly remaining silent and it's just like very few of like that everything Franky was saying is like with another parent. So like I'm given that eventually as like Franky as like that it would be probably eventually Franky uh, will be finding out, probably finding out that like Fiona has like just not this non law, it's like the scenario that I'm probably so like I'm looking like that probably happening to like I'm looking like find you the same only things about like find his life and everything to like Fiona like I'm looking at that point like even though Fiona would be going to have this like Fiona would be appearing to be like really uninterested. So find is like open up that I'm looking. So like find you only feeling like keeping up and basically that way that second will be when like Frankie when casually saying a lot of things would be even mentioning like about like would be saying something about like the like Puttanari, right? And at that point, instantly, like when they been watching Fiona, getting extremely excited, I understand like the conversation and will be like to research to like know more about like Lloyd that like Frankie know and it was like Puttanari. And that way, like I'm at that point, like so Frankie like painfully realizing that like Fiona has this like massive feelings of empathy towards like and Lloyd is like Puttanari that I'm looking for company. So like I'm looking at that way, like I'm looking like that. At that point, once like Frankie would be realizing that like I'm looking at that point, I'm looking at Frankie. At what point is feeling even more frustrated and jealous of like it was like enough. And like yeah, like I'm looking at Frankie at that point, he like ending like the date and basically like straight away heading back and basically quickly like for that state scene and handing over to like Fiona and without and bring that to Frankie at that point, like we playing senior sad but at the point that was like at that point, like Frankie without even saying a word, like handing off that for state to like Fiona and me, just like that. Is like the scenario that I was talking about, and I'm very much. And Fiona at that point wouldn't even care at all either, like the scenario that I was like, and like Fiona from that point on, like straight away going up and executing a mission and fulfilling it at that point of that put that port state state deflection in our setup to the and that way like I'm getting like the power that in scenario that to the booking and like and get my computer emission right now. It's going to be on the tool that the very end of the thing that you take the story of like space and I'm definitely prepping a final scenario where like finally that Fiona ended up being forced to like accept that reality that like Fiona doesn't have any sense exactly getting Lloyd to fall in love with that Fiona. And but me by then like I'm definitely that genuinely that uh like genuinely that as well as that Lloyd would be to be married making love with each other like scenario kind of thing. And definitely by then like Fiona will be forced to that have no other option but to like accept uh to be of acceptance of like that happening reality and so that basically that like Lord loves your and not your like scenario that I'm again. By then like I'm looking that definitely like multiple scenarios like kind similar to like a scenario where like Fiona as well as like Frankie together like doing different like in such similar situations like happening in like the future as well. Multiple times in like the future as well as like even the scenario that is solely due to like the nature of like the job that like, Fiona will be getting solely due to that factor alone that Fiona was repeatedly negative of clean once again repeatedly negative of multiple times like being forced into seeking the help of like finding finding like personality that and that all that like I'm saying that nothing in like individual chemistry being formed between that finding as well as that Fiona, where like until that very end, like I'm looking at that Fiona will be thoroughly not thoroughly reflecting language. Yeah, like I'm towards like the very end, like I'm doing that once like Fiona will be totally real accessing, feeling as like not having like not a source, but to like access that reality that is being it's like Fiona, but like no does that one can finally would be that Fiona will be giving up and knowing like I'm at that point is when I'm looking for like Fiona, which is only feeling lonely and I'm like at that point I'm looking like Fiona, maybe I'm looking to scenario. I thought Fiona at that point that remembering that crying is remembering how at that point like the pain that Fiona will be feeling of not being able to like have like the person that she so madly loves wants in her life that you know loves her back like this that would be like the same feeling of like suffering and pain that like crying to that time might have went through because like I'm at that time like I'm the Fiona and and Franky that doing that doing missions together, that multiple missions together, right? Miss like and Franky eventually genuinely and seriously ending up in that serious scenario that you wrote and yeah, like Franky eventually ending up seriously exposing how badly he loves that Fiona and everything. Yet like I'm looking at Fiona won't be at all that giving Frankie a chance and won't be at all even allowing Frankie to that won't be even bothering to that even go on a date like Frankie or anything. It's like the scenario whatever which is already ignoring Frankie. That scenario that is but like towards that end scenario like Fiona will be feeling lonely and that's why like Fiona maybe being able to like resonate and empathize with like how Frankie might have felt in that time. Reflect the windows and out of that and that understand that maybe setting in that Fiona probably going up towards like Frankie basically like Fiona asking Frankie out on a date at that point too. And at that point like Frankie being actually soft and blown away like the scenario that I'm and then the not only like Lauren and was like actually falling in love, but like also in the vision that even like the Fiona actually falling in love with that shining as well like it's another direction. And that way they like the way and like and that even Fiona as well as like finding Fiona even decided to get married to that find and maybe I'm looking that when the marriage between that Fiona and find as well maybe to happen to it like the way and so it's also like an scenario. Okay, so like the main inspiration right now is for like that love like Frankie and Fiona right now so Jack and that to totally see someone from like the state secret service or state secret service like would be perfect in like the sky in this like very club itself right now is like the winter scenario that I'm looking for right. So definitely that way like while eventually Frankie will be getting Fiona to and like not like Fiona would be getting that like the fourth takes to that of when that from that as like Frankie and Fiona would be about to meet like the club like from within that club like in that that state secret service. So something like this guy in some different maybe jury or like I'm just trying like it would be some other member of like the secret service that of secret service won't be here. It's like one of these two people that and that person would be like finding out about like this would be steadily spying and finding out like seeing like during seeing like Fiona like totally like take get this like for see kind of thing. It's like the scenario that I'm but that point also different like this like state security person like can totally attacking like Fiona as well as Frank is like the scenario that so like I'm saying Frank straight away get his job and like Fiona as well would be for me struggling to a certain extent in that fight because like I'm the like the security person like he is so really trained that so certainly strong that like I'm like even Fiona would be like going to a certain extent of like struggle in like fight against something like pushing up that and things that and like the fact of that would be making it even hard for like Fiona would be like him while fighting off against like Fiona like eventually like his secret state security wasn't like like eventually like ending up like landing one of the attack on like Fiona and maybe that way that opening being created but like another like him totally straight away like targeting Frankie at that point and he's charging towards like Frankie and like him about to like lances like extremely like attack on like Frankie and like Frankie at that point was also open and yeah and we could only unable to move. But again, that very last second, I was like Fiona, like totally like making it then basically saving finding like scenario that and in that form, like Fiona is then getting uh that attack of like that in an attack of that then the attack of like that state situation person that is landing on like Fiona taking it certain extent of like injury while attempting to like while protecting Frankie from that attack and that understanding will be solely due to that Fiona showing that minimum, bare minimum empathy towards like Frankie alone might be the case from that Fiona point of view. Yet, like I'm certainly like that being such an extreme, Frankie only seeing that as like such an extremely cool feel is like the scenario that I'm looking for. So, definitely I'm different like from that moment, like I'm like Frankie, that like act of like Fiona saving Frankie, what I'm looking for, like just putting like Frankie even more being so madly in love with like Fiona, like the scenario that I'm looking for. And then little maybe from that point, like I'm from that, even sitting in that trying suddenly getting all that out to sorry then like you're looking at trying probably using his own like some kind of like fight skill, which like Franky as well might have more like some device like some weapon like device that like Franky might have developed and might be present in one of like Franky's pocket and trying to using that against this like uh, security person and basically that resulting in that Franky maybe that ending up being that attack of like Franky ending up being the key factor in that basically bringing down like that big security person is like the scenario that so like that attack of like Franky and that doing a certain extent of like damage to that bigger security person and basically at that point self I'm looking like Fiona like combine trying that with like Fiona that as well and that way like then so they combined attack like that secret security person like don't unconscious like not that up yeah like so Franky as well as like Fiona like someone not getting close is like the scenario that was again that person could be like for that seal state seal for like few members collecting either doing for time like in either managing like a scale on that club that place and finding a different hiding spot or like a reflection getting eliminated even like that for fight and chaos that will be happening in that club. There's like they will be position after the okay, so like the possibility that I'm exploring for like the guys will that has sort of like might not be like the audience will lacking and like the audience will might have gotten captured by like the state secret service people and might have like I'm looking like the film that might have sort of to like club and maybe being like either during or like from other like state secret service would have showed up in disguise, looking exactly like the audience will, while wearing on, while wearing a face mask and like putting even mimicking the voice of like the audience will might be the case while like the audience will might be since like Frankie has already revealed that like the audience that will is basically that like the stage six from is know what like knows like appearance of like will and they maybe so will doesn't step out like a maybe like what might have happened might have been like one like will crash like one was like making us like trying like the club like will has stepped out like at that point like I'm in one of like the state secret service that person might have fought up with and might have sketchy captured with might have been what might have happened certainly might have reaction so before like people like even make it to like the club might have been what kind of happening like possibly that environment. So like and that person like might be either during or like and state secret service something like he might have probably at that point that probably interrogated well and might have found out about like basically exactly well he was heading on at that moment what was like meeting at like the club and everything. So so like I think the understood that like the more what might have happened might have been like the will up they can capture might have been the into like an situation by the state ticket service people and like then like one of the either you or like one of them that might have this guy that's this guy as like will and basically might have put on like a face mask and might have been like the person might have been like the person that might have showed up to like the club pretending to be well definitely not a trainer. So definitely like that person like uh, that fake will might have probably recognize like finding and like finding the box like the guy definitely in front of it definitely not able to definitely I'm putting up right now for like and like so it might have been that that actual fake account by like a fake will to stealthy follow Franky definitely and that way to like throw Franky to like make it towards like Twilight would be like a man definitely might have been for like the fake will would be like dead by the human presence in order to do that like that fake will might have that actually might have been a fake acting by that fake will all of a sudden saying that the money is not enough and they leave like that like he's leaving and this leaving just like that maybe on this was like couldn't plan to like totally because like that person that fake will like that state secret service person who might be in the guys of like the fake will that he might have only even though he might have not been able to see through the disguise of like Fiona, still like he might have been able to like tell that basically by the manner and body language of like Fiona that Fiona is like Spike is remembering the door definitely that fake person like him in like this guy was like the fake really like he might be planning on like basically pretending to like leave the club this point and basically going to like Frankie would be heading back like this definitely phone of Frankie and basically to catch up Franky and interrogate Franky, and that way to like make it going like Twilight. So like that, like there is another level. Right? So like right now with like twins okay, leaving like the club, like it would be like continuous activity, like the face like and when right now the like I'm looking like Fiona totally acting similar disappointed. So that again like Fiona straight away leaving like the club is like another level. So like Frankie at that point once again would be that for Frankie at that point would once again be feeling lonely and like as like Frankie will be and back leaving like the club and going back all alone on his way back, like another bring like that would tell like number 20 lakh this like fake with like would be showing up in behind Frankie. So like Frankie that and like or and like the chronic Frankie and then the, like Frankie coming back and like seeing like the scene with and the Frankie will be confused as to like why with like sort of after like think say that after like 30 like so like at that point I'm doing like the quit totally taking off his like face mask and like at that point Frankie getting that up with shock of that basically of like surprise of that basically that yeah that person who then it could be will being like a secret service will stay secret service person in actual prison or like that person being like during the like the scenario that happened like so I don't know this was the possibility what I'm making. So like at that point, like finally would be totally feeling cornered and basically at that point I'm looking like just like state secret so secret agent like that was like straight away like threatening Frankie and asking Frankie to like tell where like Twilight is like the scenario that I'm looking. So like at that point like I'm looking like Frankie totally refusing to tell him and I'm looking like at that point like that state security person like I'm at that point like taking out a weapon immediately to be threatening finding at that point of like the scenario where so like at that point I'm looking like finding is getting clear and like he will be about to reveal like identity of like Twilight as like Lloyd and all that like as like Frankie would be about to reveal that like at that very last second I'm looking like Fiona already showing up and with me Fiona so like the fight between like Fiona and like that secret service so happening at that point like it's another that so like that way in that point like I'm doing like Fiona only offering and knocking on phone chips that they secretly person and basically like escaping with like finding that one is like one person out that I'm looking for and my reactor. So like Frankie at that point would be only feeling that would be even more in love with like Fiona because of like Fiona having came to like the few that Frankie and save Frankie and all that like now that about the world over again. Like and then like about the method programs like that's the scenario happening and Fiona even being it like make it in time and save Frankie like and that would be only do like Fiona has like pretty good experience like working as like a fight agent and everything like I'm looking like Fiona might have tried something peacefully off with like the reflects the way will have basically uh react to that Frankie and that Frankie uh from like that was definitely when something that Fiona might have said something off about like the behavior of that which even though Fiona was like being against Frankie. It definitely meant so like Fiona might have said consciously decided to naturally put on a fake acting after like Twin had left as if like Fiona was like leaving Heidi and Daisy while while putting on such fake act that Fiona might have stealthily from a distance might have with that extreme stealth that might have stealthily following like again like that way in Fiona might have seen like this very thing well like basically uh, as well stealthily following Heidi in front of like Fiona might have been it's like this makes it like the scenario that I'm mentioning. In that way, being possible for like Fiona to like save Frankie as well as like save Twilight as well and prevent like Frankie from like even revealing like the identity of Twilight to like that state secret secrecy because of being left with the child like uh wait yeah like in the scenario that I'm looking at the frame